Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Earth Defense Station Olympus, watching the screens that showed 10 massive objects racing toward Earth. The alien ships had arrived 3 days ago at the edge of the solar system and sent one simple message to all human governments. They wanted Earth and they wanted humans gone within 7 days or they would take it by force. The creatures called themselves the HFY Collective, and they claimed Earth was their ancient homeworld that humans had stolen thousands of years ago. Jake had been in space for 15 years, serving in Earth's small defense fleet, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The 10 missiles were each the size of a city block and moving faster than anything humans had ever built. His tactical officer, Amy Rodriguez, sat at her station running calculations on her computer, trying to figure out what kind of damage these weapons would cause. "Commander, the missiles will hit Earth in 12 minutes, Amy said without looking up from her screen. Based on their size and speed, each one could destroy an entire city and everything around it for hundreds of miles. Jake felt his stomach drop as he realized what was about to happen. Earth had over 8 billion people, and most of them lived in the big cities that these missiles seemed to be aimed at. The defense satellites around Earth were firing everything they had, but the alien weapons had shields that seemed to absorb all the energy without slowing down. "Send an emergency broadcast to all Earth stations and colonies," Jake ordered. "Tell them to prepare for the worst and activate all emergency protocols." Amy's fingers flew across her keyboard as she sent the warnings to Mars colonies, asteroid mining stations, and lunar bases. Jake knew that even if Earth was destroyed, there were still millions of humans scattered across the solar system, in various outposts and research facilities. The aliens might win this battle, but they would find that killing every human would not be as easy as they thought. The first missile struck New York City, and the explosion was visible from space as a bright flash that lasted several seconds. The entire eastern coast of North America lit up as the alien weapon released energy equivalent to 1,000 nuclear bombs. London was next, followed by Tokyo, then Moscow. Each impact created a crater dozens of miles wide and killed millions of people in an instant. Jake watched in horror as the cities he had visited during his career disappeared from the surface of Earth. Beijing vanished in another flash of light, followed by Mumbai and São Paulo. The aliens were targeting the biggest population centers to maximize the death count and send a message to any surviving humans about what happened when the HFY Collective was refused. Lagos went next, then Sydney, and finally Los Angeles. In less than 10 minutes, 10 major cities had been wiped from existence along with everyone who lived there. The death toll was beyond anything humans had ever experienced in their entire history. Over 2 billion people were dead, and many more would die from the radiation and environmental damage caused by the attacks. Amy was crying at her station as she read the casualty reports coming in from the impact sites. "Commander, there are no survivors from any of the targeted cities. The radiation levels are so high that rescue teams cannot even get close to help anyone who might have lived through the initial explosions." Jake felt a cold rage building in his chest as he watched the smoke and fire rising from Earth's wounded surface. The HFY had not just attacked military targets or government buildings. They had deliberately chosen civilian populations to murder as many humans as possible. This was not a military strategy, but pure genocide designed to break human spirit and force surrender. "What are our remaining military assets?" Jake asked as he turned away from the screens showing Earth's destruction. "Most of our fleet was destroyed when the home ports were hit," Amy replied while checking her displays. "We have maybe 50 ships scattered throughout the solar system, including mining vessels that could be armed. The Mars Defense Station is still operational, and the asteroid belt mining operations are intact." Jake nodded as he began to understand the full scope of what the aliens had done. They had destroyed Earth's major population centers but left the outer colonies and industrial facilities mostly untouched. This was intentional because the HFY wanted the remaining humans to see what happened when their species was defied. They expected the survivors to surrender immediately rather than face total extinction. The alien fleet was now moving into Earth orbit and broadcasting surrender demands on all frequencies. They wanted the remaining human governments to formally hand over control of all territory and resources. Any resistance would result in the complete destruction of every human settlement in the solar system. Jake opened a communication channel to all surviving human facilities and began recording a message that would change the course of human history. This is Commander Jake Morrison of Earth Defense Command speaking to all human settlements and ships. Earth has been attacked and over 2 billion of our people are dead. The aliens responsible think they have broken our spirit and that we will surrender like beaten dogs. He paused and looked at the screen showing the burning cities below. They are wrong about what kind of species they have chosen to fight. Every human who died today was someone's family. They were our mothers and fathers and children and friends. The HFY collective has shown us exactly what they think human life is worth, and we will remember this lesson. Amy stopped crying and looked up at her commander as she realized what he was planning. The other crew members on the station also turned to listen as Jake continued his broadcast. We will not surrender, and we will not forgive what happened here today. Every human settlement will work together to make sure these aliens pay for what they have done. We have mining equipment that can be turned into weapons and ships that can carry them anywhere we need. The communication channel crackled with responses from human outposts throughout the solar system. Mars colonies confirmed they were ready to fight. Asteroid mining crews reported they could convert their rock-hauling equipment into kinetic weapons. Even the small research stations around Jupiter and Saturn pledged to contribute whatever resources they had. Jake looked at the alien fleet orbiting Earth and smiled coldly. The HFY had made a critical mistake in their attack plan. They had left enough humans alive to remember what happened, and angry enough to spend the rest of their lives seeking revenge. The 10 missiles that destroyed Earth's cities had not broken human will but forged it into something harder and more dangerous than the aliens could imagine. Begin Phase 1 of Operation Payback, Jake announced to his crew. Contact all mining operations and tell them to start moving asteroids toward the inner system. The HFY wanted to see what humans do when pushed to extinction. Let's show them. Dr. Helen Carter watched the destruction of Earth from the observation deck of Mars research colony Kepler and felt something inside her mind break apart like glass hitting concrete. She had spent 20 years studying alien artifacts and peaceful contact protocols, but nothing in her research had prepared her for watching her home planet burn. The woman who had dedicated her career to finding ways for humans and aliens to coexist peacefully now understood that some species could never be reasoned with or trusted. The casualty reports kept coming through the communication systems as rescue teams tried to assess the damage on Earth. New York was gone completely with a crater where Manhattan used to be. London was a smoking wasteland of melted buildings and radioactive ash. Every major population center had been turned into a tomb for millions of people who had been living normal lives just hours before. Helen's hand shook as she read the names of colleagues and friends who had been working in the destroyed cities. Dr. Martin Webb from the London Xenobiology Institute was dead along with his entire research team. Professor Lisa Chang from Beijing University had been giving a lecture to students when the missile hit. The International Space Cooperation headquarters in New York had housed dozens of people Helen had worked with over the years, and now they were all gone. Colony Administrator Ben Walsh found Helen sitting in the observatory still staring at Earth's burning surface 6 hours after the attack. Ben was a practical man who had spent his career managing mining operations and supply logistics, but even he seemed shaken by what they had witnessed. The colony had over 3,000 residents who were now effectively refugees, since Earth could no longer support human civilization. Helen, we need to talk about what comes next, Ben said quietly as he sat down beside her. The aliens are demanding surrender from all human settlements within 24 hours. They want us to shut down our colonies and report to processing centers they are setting up on Earth. Helen turned away from the window and looked at Ben with eyes that had changed from academic curiosity to something much harder and colder. They left us alive on purpose. This was not a military attack designed to win territory quickly. They could have destroyed every human settlement in one coordinated strike, but instead, they chose to kill civilians and leave the industrial facilities intact. Ben nodded as he pulled up holographic displays showing the current status of all human settlements throughout the solar system. The asteroid mining operations are still fully functional along with most of the outer system research stations. They want us to watch Earth burn and then surrender out of fear rather than face the same fate. Helen stood up and walked to the tactical display that showed the locations of all human assets in the solar system. Mars had 12 major colonies with over 50,000 people total. The asteroid belt mining operations employed another 30,000 workers scattered across hundreds of facilities. Jupiter and Saturn research stations housed several thousand, more along with various smaller outposts throughout the outer planets. How quickly can we convert the mining equipment into weapons? Helen asked, as she studied the industrial capacity reports. The rock haulers and excavation systems are designed to break apart asteroids and move massive amounts of material. With some modifications, they could deliver kinetic weapons at very high speeds. Ben's eyes widened as he realized what Helen was suggesting. You want to turn our industrial infrastructure into a military production system. The mining ships could accelerate asteroid chunks to significant fractions of light speed using their fusion drives. Helen nodded and opened a communication channel to the other Mars colony administrators. This is Dr. Helen Carter at Kepler Research Station calling all Mars settlements. We need to coordinate our response to the alien ultimatum, and I have a proposal that might give us a fighting chance. The response was immediate, as administrators from all 12 colonies joined the secure communication network. Helen could see the same mixture of grief and anger on their faces that she felt in her own heart. These were people who had left Earth to build humanity's future among the stars, and now they were the only hope for their species' survival. The Kethavar made a strategic error when they chose to attack civilians instead of military targets, Helen explained as she shared her analysis with the group. They have superior technology, but they underestimated human industrial capacity and our ability to adapt existing tools for new purposes. Dr. Patricia Moore from Olympia Colony spoke, first with a voice that shook with barely controlled rage. My daughter was visiting her grandparents in London when the missiles hit. She was only 16 years old and had her whole life ahead of her. I want to know how we can make these bastards pay for what they have done. The other administrators voiced similar sentiments as they shared stories of family and friends lost in the attack. Helen realized that every human settlement was now motivated by the same desire for revenge against an enemy that had shown no mercy to innocent civilians. This shared grief could be channeled into a coordinated response that might surprise the aliens who expected easy surrender. We need to contact the asteroid mining operations immediately. Helen continued as she pulled up technical specifications for the mining equipment. Captain Lisa Parker is in command of the largest mining fleet near Ceres. Her ships have the most powerful engines and cargo capacity in the system. Ben opened a new communication channel, and within minutes, Lisa Parker's face appeared on the holographic display. The mining captain looked like she had not slept since watching Earth burn, and her usual friendly demeanor had been replaced by something much more dangerous. Lisa commanded over 200 mining vessels and employed thousands of workers who were now committed to fighting rather than running. Dr. Carter, I have been waiting for someone to coordinate our response, Lisa said immediately. My crews have been asking what we can do to hit back at these aliens. We have ships that can move asteroids anywhere in the system, and the knowledge to make them into very effective weapons. Helen felt a surge of hope as she realized that humanity's scattered settlements could work together, despite being separated by millions of miles. Lisa, we need to know exactly what your ships can do in terms of accelerating mass toward targets. The alien fleet is positioned in Earth orbit, and they seem confident that their shields can protect them from conventional weapons. Lisa smiled, for the first time since the attack, as she pulled up technical data on her mining equipment. Doctor, my ships are designed to push rocks the size of buildings at speeds that would make military engineers jealous. If we pack the cargo holds with tungsten cores and accelerate them using our fusion drives, we can deliver kinetic energy equivalent to nuclear weapons. The other colony administrators began contributing ideas as they realized the scope of what could be accomplished by converting peaceful mining operations into a military force. Jupiter research stations could provide scientific analysis of alien technology. Saturn facilities could manufacture specialized equipment. Every human settlement had resources that could be used to support a coordinated counterattack. Helen opened communication channels to every human facility in the solar system and began organizing what would become known as the Great Mobilization. Mining crews throughout the asteroid belt started modifying their equipment and preparing asteroid fragments for use as kinetic weapons. Research stations began analyzing captured alien technology to find weaknesses. Colony administrators coordinated supply chains to support military operations. Dr. Helen Carter had transformed from a peaceful researcher into humanity's chief weapons coordinator in the space of a single day. The aliens had intended to break human spirit with their attack on Earth, but instead they had awakened something far more dangerous. Every human settlement was now working toward a single goal of making the Kethvar Collective pay for their genocide. 10 missiles that destroyed Earth cities had killed over 2 billion people, but they had also forged the survivors into a unified force, committed to absolute revenge. Helen looked at the tactical displays showing human assets throughout the solar system, and smiled coldly as she realized what they could accomplish when working together. The aliens had no idea what kind of enemy they had created. Admiral Ross Thompson had been visiting Luna Shipyard Complex when Earth died, and now he found himself commanding humanity's remnants from the moon's hidden military installations deep beneath the surface. The lunar bases had been built as backup, command centers in case Earth was ever threatened, but nobody had imagined they would actually be needed for coordinating humanity's survival against alien genocide. Ross stood in the primary command bunker 3 miles underground, watching holographic displays that showed the Kethvar fleet maintaining a blockade around Earth's orbit. 50 alien capital ships, each larger than anything humans had ever built, were positioned in a perfect defensive sphere, protecting their garrison forces on the planet's surface. The aliens seemed confident that their superior technology made them invulnerable to any counterattack the surviving humans might attempt. Major Kate Sullivan approached with the latest intelligence reports from human reconnaissance drones that had been secretly observing the alien activities. Kate had lost her entire family in the Los Angeles strike, but had channeled her grief into becoming the most effective intelligence analyst in the surviving military. She worked 18-hour days coordinating information from all human settlements and planning operations against the occupying forces. "Admiral, the aliens have established processing centers in the ruins of the major cities," Kate reported, as she activated tactical overlays on the display screens. "They are using Earth's surviving population as forced labor to extract resources and build permanent installations. Current estimates suggest they have enslaved over 50 million humans who survived the initial attacks." Ross felt his jaw clench as he studied the reports describing how the Kethvar were treating human survivors. The aliens had not bothered with prisoner of war protocols or basic humanitarian considerations. They were using humans like work animals to strip mine Earth's remaining resources, while building military bases for expanding their territory throughout the galaxy. "What about their defensive positions?" Ross asked as he focused on the strategic situation rather than the emotional impact of slavery reports. "Have our reconnaissance probes identified any weaknesses in their blockade formation?" Kate highlighted sections of the alien fleet deployment showing gaps in their coverage of the outer system approaches. "The Kethvar are focusing their attention on the inner planets and seem to consider the asteroid belt and outer system settlements as minimal threats. Their patrol patterns suggest they expect any human resistance to come from Mars or Luna, rather than the mining operations," Ross nodded, as he began to understand the tactical opportunities created by alien overconfidence. The Kethvar had studied human military capabilities before their attack, but had failed to appreciate how quickly civilian infrastructure could be converted into military assets. They were thinking like a traditional space navy, rather than adapting to fight an enemy that was distributed throughout an entire solar system. "Send coded transmissions to all human settlements using the emergency protocols," Ross ordered as he began formulating a comprehensive battle plan. "Operation Ragnarok is now active. All civilian administrators are authorized to take whatever actions they consider necessary to support military operations against the occupying forces." The communication went out on quantum encrypted channels that the aliens had not yet learned to decode. Within hours, every human settlement was receiving detailed instructions for their role in a coordinated counterattack that would take advantage of the enemy's blind spots and technological assumptions. Dr. Helen Carter on Mars began supervising the conversion of mining equipment into kinetic weapon systems. Her teams were working around the clock to modify asteroid haulers and excavation ships into delivery platforms for relativistic projectiles. The mining crews had decades of experience moving massive objects at high speeds and were adapting their techniques for military applications. Captain Lisa Parker in the asteroid belt was coordinating the preparation of kinetic ammunition using the same techniques that mining operations use to process raw ore. Her ships were loading their cargo bays with tungsten cores wrapped in ablative shells that would survive acceleration to significant fractions of light speed. Each projectile had the kinetic energy of a nuclear weapon when delivered at the velocities her fusion drives could achieve. The outer system research stations were contributing scientific analysis of captured alien technology and materials recovered from missile impact sites on Earth. Jupiter and Saturn facilities had powerful sensor arrays that could track alien ship movements and identify weaknesses in their shield systems and hull designs. Ross watched the coordination displays showing how human settlements throughout the solar system were working together, despite being separated by hundreds of millions of miles. The aliens had intended to scatter and demoralize the survivors, but instead had created a distributed military network that was almost impossible to detect or destroy completely. Admiral, we are receiving reports that the aliens have detected some unusual activity in the outer system, Kate announced as she reviewed the latest intelligence updates. However, they seem to be interpreting it as desperate refugees trying to establish new settlements rather than military preparations. Ross smiled grimly as he realized how thoroughly the Kethavar had underestimated human capabilities and intentions. The aliens were accustomed to fighting species that used traditional military hierarchies and conventional weapon systems. They had no experience dealing with an enemy that could convert civilian infrastructure into military assets within a matter of months. How long until we can begin the first phase of counterattack operations? Ross asked as he reviewed the timeline displays showing production schedules and deployment plans. Kate consulted her tactical computers and coordination charts showing the status of all human military preparations. Based on current progress reports, we should be ready to initiate kinetic bombardment in approximately 6 months. The mining operations need time to position asteroid ammunition and modify their delivery systems for maximum effectiveness. Ross nodded as he authorized the continuation of Operation Ragnarok preparations. 6 months would give the human settlements enough time to coordinate their attacks and ensure maximum surprise when the offensive began. The aliens would have 6 months to become comfortable and overconfident in their positions around Earth. The Lunar Command Center became the coordination hub for humanity's revenge, as Ross and his staff worked with settlement leaders throughout the solar system to plan the most comprehensive military operation in human history. Every asteroid mining ship would become a kinetic weapons platform. Every research station would contribute intelligence and scientific support. Every colony would provide resources and personnel for the coordinated assault. Dr. Helen Carter's breakthrough came when she realized that human mining technology could be scaled up exponentially to move objects far larger than anything the aliens anticipated. Her teams began hollowing out asteroids the size of small moons and converting them into massive kinetic weapons that could penetrate any known shield technology through sheer momentum and mass. The Kethavar maintained their blockade around Earth, while establishing permanent military installations on the planet's surface. They sent periodic demands for surrender to the outer system settlements but seemed content to wait for human morale to collapse, rather than actively hunting down the remaining populations. This patience gave humanity exactly what they needed to prepare their response. Ross spent his days coordinating with settlement leaders and his nights studying alien tactical patterns looking for weaknesses that could be exploited. The enemy fleet followed predictable patrol routes and maintained fixed defensive positions that suggested they were not expecting any serious resistance from the scattered human survivors. "They think we are broken," Ross told Kate during one of their late-night planning sessions. The Kethavar believed that destroying Earth was enough to end human resistance and that the survivors will eventually surrender rather than face extinction. Kate looked up from the tactical displays showing the positions of human assets throughout the solar system and smiled coldly. "Then they are about to learn that killing our families was the worst strategic mistake they could have made. Every human settlement is now committed to fighting until either we win or every last one of us is dead." Ross activated the secure communication channel that connected all human military commanders and settlement leaders throughout the solar system. "This is Admiral Ross Thompson with a message for every human listening. In 6 months, we begin our counterattack against the aliens who destroyed our home and murdered our people. We will show them what happens when someone threatens humanity with extinction. Captain Lisa Parker stood on the bridge of her modified mining vessel Reaper 1, exactly 1 year after watching Earth burn, and felt the cold satisfaction of long-awaited revenge finally beginning. The asteroid belt around her ship buzzed with activity as hundreds of mining vessels loaded with kinetic ammunition prepared for the largest coordinated attack in human history. Every rock hauler and excavation ship had been converted into a weapons platform capable of delivering devastating firepower across interplanetary distances. Lisa opened communication channels to all human combat units throughout the solar system, using the quantum encrypted networks that Admiral Thompson had established from his lunar command center. The moment had finally arrived to show the Kethvar Collective what happened when they underestimated human determination and industrial capacity. All units, this is Reaper 1 beginning final approach to combat positions, Lisa announced, as her fleet began accelerating toward the inner system. Today we collect the debt that was earned when they murdered 2 billion of our people. For Earth and for everyone who died that day. The response came back immediately from mining crews throughout the belt as they confirmed readiness for the assault. Each ship carried tungsten core penetrator rounds accelerated to 30% of light speed, using fusion drives that had been modified far beyond their original specifications. The projectiles were essentially solid metal bullets the size of telephone poles moving fast enough to punch through any known shield technology. Behind the smaller mining vessels came the heavy haulers pushing asteroid fragments the size of city blocks toward predetermined impact coordinates. Dr. Helen Carter had calculated the exact trajectories needed to deliver maximum kinetic energy to the alien blockade positions around Earth. The larger rocks would arrive several hours after the initial attack to finish off any surviving enemy ships. Admiral Ross Thompson watched from Luna Command as the attack began with precision timing that would have impressed any military academy instructor. The human settlements had spent months coordinating their assault to ensure that every weapon arrived at the target area simultaneously, despite being launched from distances spanning the entire solar system. The Kethvar fleet detected the approaching projectiles but initially dismissed them as debris or desperate suicide attacks from the scattered human survivors. Their energy shields were designed to deflect advanced particle beam weapons and guided missiles, rather than simple solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The alien commanders had studied human military technology, but had completely failed to understand how mining equipment could be weaponized. The first kinetic rounds struck the outer edge of the alien defensive formation at exactly the calculated time, and the results exceeded even Dr. Carter's most optimistic projections. 3 Kethvar capital ships simply disintegrated as tungsten penetrators moving at 90,000 miles per second tore through their hulls at the molecular level. The alien shields that could absorb tremendous amounts of energy offered no protection whatsoever against solid projectiles with that much momentum. Captain Patricia Moore, commanding the mining ship Vengeance, watched through her targeting systems as the alien formation dissolved into chaos. The Kethvar had maintained perfect defensive positions for months, but now their ships were scattering in all directions, trying to avoid the continuing bombardment of kinetic weapons that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Target the command ship with the big antennas, Patricia ordered her weapons officer as she identified what appeared to be the alien fleet flagship. Load armor-piercing rounds and give me maximum velocity on the delivery. The mining ship's cargo launcher fired a stream of tungsten cores that crossed the distance to the alien command vessel in less than 10 seconds. The Kethvar flagship tried to maneuver, but mining ships were designed to hit moving targets like asteroids, and their targeting systems easily compensated for evasive action. The alien command ship exploded in a brilliant flash as multiple penetrator rounds struck its reactor core. Dr. Helen Carter monitored the battle progress from Mars Control Center and felt grim satisfaction as she watched her calculations prove accurate. The alien fleet was designed to fight other space navies using energy weapons and guided missiles. They had no defense against an enemy that could throw rocks at them with the velocity and accuracy of precision artillery. Phase 2 initiate, Carter announced as she activated the second wave of the human counterattack. The massive hollowed-out asteroid that had been secretly positioned behind Jupiter now revealed itself as the largest weapons platform ever constructed by human civilization. Electromagnetic railguns, each over a kilometer long, began hurling projectiles toward the reeling alien fleet. The Jupiter weapons platform had been Dr. Carter's masterpiece of military engineering, combining human mining technology with salvaged alien materials recovered from the Earth impact sites. The railguns could accelerate projectiles to even higher velocities than the mining ship fusion drives, and their targeting computers could track hundreds of targets simultaneously across interplanetary distances. Major Kate Sullivan coordinated target assignments from Luna Command as she watched the alien blockade formation completely collapse under the sustained kinetic bombardment. The Keithvar ships that survived the initial attack were now trapped between the continuing missile barrage from the asteroid belt and the railgun fire from the Jupiter platform. "Admiral, we are detecting alien distress signals and requests for ceasefire," Kate reported as she monitored enemy communications. "They are offering to negotiate withdrawal from the solar system in exchange for ending the bombardment, Admiral." Thompson looked at the tactical displays showing over 30 alien capital ships destroyed or disabled in the first hour of combat. The Kethvar fleet that had seemed invincible when blockading Earth was being systematically annihilated by converted mining equipment operated by civilian volunteers seeking revenge for their murdered families. "Signal all units to continue the attack," Thompson ordered without hesitation. "The aliens showed no mercy to our civilians, and they will receive none from us. Every enemy ship in the solar system will be destroyed before we consider any negotiations." Captain Lisa Parker heard the order and smiled as she targeted another alien cruiser with her remaining kinetic ammunition. The mining crews throughout the belt were working with mechanical efficiency to reload and retarget their weapon systems. These were people who had spent their careers moving massive objects with precision, and they were applying those same skills to eliminating the aliens who had destroyed their homeworld. The battle continued for 18 more hours as human forces systematically hunted down every Kethvar vessel in the inner solar system. The aliens tried to retreat toward the outer planets, but found their escape routes blocked by more mining. Ships that had been positioned weeks earlier in anticipation of exactly this scenario. Dr. Carter's heavy asteroid bombardment arrived exactly on schedule to finish off the alien garrison forces that had been established on Earth's surface. The massive rock fragments struck with enough energy to create new crater lakes where the alien military bases had been constructed. Any Kethvar forces that survived the orbital battle were eliminated by the surface bombardment. Commander Jake Morrison watched from his position aboard the rebuilt defense station as the last alien ship in human space was destroyed by concentrated railgun fire from the Jupiter platform. The man who had witnessed Earth's destruction now had the satisfaction of seeing every enemy vessel reduced to expanding clouds of debris and plasma. "This is Commander Morrison to all human forces," Jake announced on the fleet communication channels. "The solar system has been cleared of all hostile alien presence. Phase 1 of Operation Payback is complete. Prepare to begin Phase 2 operations against enemy territory." Lisa Parker looked at the tactical displays showing the locations of Kethvar, colonies and military installations throughout nearby star systems. The aliens had made the mistake of providing complete navigation data when they first contacted human governments with their surrender demands. Now that same information would be used to track down every Kethvar settlement within 50 light-years of Earth. "All ships prepare for interstellar deployment," Lisa ordered as her mining fleet began forming up for the long journey to alien space. The Kethvar wanted to see what humans do when threatened with extinction. "Let's go show their homeworlds exactly what they unleashed when they murdered our families." The human fleet that emerged from the solar system 6 months later bore no resemblance to the peaceful mining operations that had existed before the alien attack. Every vessel had been converted into a weapon of war, and every crew member was motivated by the absolute determination to make the Kethvar collective pay for their genocide. The aliens had awakened something far more dangerous than they could have imagined, and now they would face the consequences of their actions. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the warship Retribution as it approached the Kethvar home system, 2 years after Earth had burned. The vessel had been built from salvaged alien technology and human determination, with one purpose in mind, which was to deliver absolute justice to the species that had committed genocide against human civilization. Every system on the ship, from weapons to life support, had been designed by survivors who would never forget the sight of their homeworld dying. The human fleet that followed Retribution into alien space consisted of over 300 vessels, converted from mining ships and research platforms into the most effective military force the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Lisa Parker commanded the kinetic weapons squadrons, while Dr. Helen Carter supervised the massive asteroid bombardment platforms that could reduce entire planets to rubble if necessary. Jake opened communication channels to the Kethvar, government centers on their homeworld, as the human fleet took up positions throughout the star system. The aliens had been sending surrender offers and peace negotiations for months, but none of the human commanders were interested in anything except total victory over the species that had murdered 2 billion innocent people. This is the human fleet addressing the Kethvar collective leadership. Jake announced on all frequencies, ensuring that every alien on their homeworld could hear his words. 2 years ago, you launched 10 missiles at Earth and murdered over 2 billion of our people, including children and families who had never threatened your species in any way. The response came immediately from the planetary government as Kethvar officials tried to negotiate some kind of agreement that would save their civilization from the revenge they could see approaching. Jake listened to their offers of reparations and territorial concessions, while studying tactical displays that showed the locations of every military installation in the star system. You sent us a message when you destroyed our cities. Jake continued without acknowledging the alien surrender offers. That message was clear and simple. You told us that human life had no value and that our species could be exterminated whenever it was convenient for your expansion plans. Today we are here to send you our reply. Admiral Thompson coordinated the attack from his command ship Luna's Wrath as human forces began the systematic destruction of every Kethvar military facility in the home system. The aliens had hundreds of defense stations and warship construction yards that had been built over thousands of years, but none of them could withstand the kinetic bombardment techniques that humans had perfected during their preparation for revenge. Dr. Carter watched through her targeting systems as asteroid fragments the size of mountains struck Kethvar military installations with enough energy to vaporize everything within hundreds of miles of the impact sites. The aliens had built their facilities to withstand conventional energy weapons, but they had no defense against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. Target the orbital shipyards next, Carter ordered her bombardment crews as she identified the facilities where Kethvar warships were constructed. I want every piece of military infrastructure in this system reduced to expanding clouds of plasma and debris. Captain Parker led her squadron of modified mining vessels in close-range attacks against alien defense platforms that tried to protect the shipyards. The same fusion drives that had been designed to push asteroids through space now accelerated tungsten penetrator rounds to velocities that could punch through any known armor or shielding technology. The Kethvar home fleet tried to mount a defensive response but found themselves completely outmatched by human weapons that they had never encountered before. Their energy shields and particle beam weapons were useless against an enemy that fought by throwing rocks at incredible speeds with pinpoint accuracy across interplanetary distances. Lieutenant Chris Morgan monitored alien communications from his position aboard Retribution and reported that the Kethvar government was now offering complete surrender, including the dismantling of their entire military structure. The aliens seemed genuinely shocked that the humans they had dismissed as primitive had developed into such an effective fighting force. Commander, they are broadcasting surrender offers on all frequencies, Morgan reported as he filtered through dozens of desperate messages from alien officials. They want to negotiate a peace treaty and offer to pay reparations for the damage they caused to Earth. Jake looked at the tactical displays showing Kethvar cities filled with billions of aliens who had supported their government's decision to commit genocide against human civilization. These were the same people who had celebrated when Earth burned and who had expected easy victory over a species they considered inferior and weak. Signal the fleet to begin bombardment of military targets only, Jake ordered as he made the decision that would define how humans would be viewed throughout the galaxy for generations to come. Civilian areas are off limits, but every military installation, every weapons factory, and every government building that supported the attack on Earth will be destroyed. Dr. Carter coordinated the precision bombardment campaign that reduced Kethvar military power to nothing within 72 hours. Human forces demonstrated their ability to strike any target on the alien homeworld with perfect accuracy while avoiding civilian casualties. The message was clear that humans could have exterminated the entire HFY population, but chose not to become the same kind of genocidal monsters. The systematic destruction of alien military capabilities continued for weeks as human forces tracked down every hidden weapons facility and secret research installation throughout the star system. Captain Parker's mining crews proved incredibly effective at locating underground bunkers and destroying them with precisely placed kinetic strikes that left surrounding areas undamaged. Admiral Thompson received the final surrender documents from what remained of the HFY government, as they formally acknowledged defeat and agreed to all human demands for the complete dismantling of their war machine. The aliens were required to broadcast their surrender across all known space frequencies so that every species in the galaxy would hear the same message. This is the HFY Collective formally surrendering to human forces and acknowledging our complete defeat, the alien government broadcast to the entire galaxy. We attacked human civilization without justification and murdered billions of innocent people. The human response has demonstrated that our species made a terrible mistake in underestimating their capabilities and determination. Jake listened to the surrender broadcast and felt the cold satisfaction of absolute victory over an enemy that had shown no mercy to human civilians. The HFY had learned too late that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their military training, but their refusal to forgive those who threatened their species with extinction. Dr. Carter supervised the establishment of human monitoring stations throughout the former HFY territory to ensure that the aliens never again developed the capability to threaten other species. The same mining technology that had been used to destroy their military forces would now be used to build a permanent human presence in their space. Captain Parker took command of the occupation forces that would remain in alien territory to oversee the complete demilitarization of HFY civilization. Her crews had proven that humans could adapt peaceful technology for military purposes faster and more effectively than any species the galaxy had ever seen. The war ended not with human surrender as the aliens had expected, but with the complete transformation of humanity from a peaceful species into something far more dangerous. The HFY had intended to demonstrate their superiority over primitive humans, but instead had awakened a sleeping giant that would reshape the balance of power throughout known space. Other alien species who heard the surrender broadcast began sending diplomatic messages to human settlements offering trade agreements and alliance treaties. Word spread quickly through interstellar communications that humanity was the species that had turned mining equipment into weapons of mass destruction and had demonstrated the dangerous consequences of attacking human civilians. Jake Morrison looked at the tactical displays showing human forces now controlling multiple star systems and smiled as he realized what the 10 missiles that destroyed Earth had ultimately accomplished. The HFY attack had scattered humanity across the galaxy, but had also forged them into a unified military force, committed to ensuring that no species would ever again threaten human survival. The aliens who had launched those missiles thinking they could easily exterminate an inferior species had instead triggered humanity's transformation into the most feared and respected military power the galaxy had ever encountered. The lesson carved into interstellar history by 2 billion graves would be remembered for thousands of years, as other species learned to approach humanity with the caution and respect that such dangerous neighbors deserved.